Welcome, my friends. Welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Wednesday, June 15th. That means it's Destination Health Day. We've got a big day lined up for you today. The first hour or so, based on your calls, is really kind of a health free-for-all, anything you want to talk about. I have some things I'll open with today while we're getting some calls lined up. We're going to open those phone lines right now, so start dialing. 855-950-3835. Calls are starting to come in. We'll get to them here pretty quickly. I have a bunch of stuff I could talk about, but if you want to jump in, today's really all about you. After the free-for-all, Lauren will be joining me for After Hours with Kevin and Lauren. We'll be doing another case study today on anxiety and depression. We're seeing a lot of that, so we're going to talk about that today, give you a real case study and somebody we're working on, and then after that, we'll go live on healthytribe.com. Lauren will be on video. I'll be in the chat, and we'll be taking all health questions there as well. So lots of opportunities today to get your questions answered. Jump in and join us. 855-950-3835. So I've talked about some of these things on and off over the last couple of years, but kind of looking at the big picture now, and there are some pretty clear patterns that are starting to set up. And you don't want to think the worst, but at a certain point, it's hard not to think that somehow this is designed this way, that these aren't accidents or coincidences. At some point, and I think we're at that point, it's hard to look at this and say, is something else going on? So what are we talking about? Well, the food production facility fires. I did an open on this a couple weeks ago. I went through a list of 20-some that I did follow up on to make sure that they actually happened. So it wasn't just somebody making up this list. I got a list. I followed it up. I found all the news reports on each one. They were all legitimate fires. Now, none of them were claiming that it was, arson. Some of them clearly are arson. We haven't caught anybody yet. There seem to be a lot of excuses and reasons, but these numbers are unusual. We shouldn't be seeing this many. Then I started noticing that we're also seeing a lot of food recalls. Now, again, these happen all the time. I'm pretty aware of these. I have news alerts that make me aware of these because it's something I'm interested in. So I've been watching food recalls for years. I know about how many we have every year, and all of a sudden we have way more than we used to. Food being recalled because of contamination, and it's hurting and killing people. We have a couple outbreaks of hepatitis from foodborne contamination, and hepatitis can destroy your liver. So this isn't a matter of, you just get a little bit of food poisoning and in a couple days you're fine. Some of these things are pretty serious, and there's a lot more of them than we are used to seeing. Then we have just plain shortages. And the newest one, obviously shortages of baby formula. That's pretty important. Did we wake up in some third world country that can't even feed its own children? This is just awful, honestly. And now I read this morning, the next shortage they're predicting, insulin. This could get ugly. Type 1 diabetics absolutely have to have insulin to live. Many type 2 diabetics have gotten to the point where they have to have insulin to live. Insulin prices have been all over the board, but now we're actually talking about insulin shortages. If you know of somebody who is dependent on insulin, I would make them aware of this, and I would also let them know that there is a way of eating and living that for a type 2 diabetic, you could eliminate the need for insulin completely. You would not be bothered by this shortage if it turns out to happen. Type 1s, you can get by with a lot less insulin if you eat very low carb. So there is something that people can do to help themselves during this shortage if it occurs, but most people don't realize that or know that. So this is a place where you could be a lot of help to some people. So keep that in mind. And then obviously food price inflation. Prices of food are just insane. I normally don't look at prices at the grocery store. I typically just tend to buy the best quality food I can get, and I just realize that's an expense I'm going to pay, and if I have to sacrifice somewhere else, I will. But I've been paying attention to food prices just because they're so shocking. Now, there's something you can do here, and it's good in a lot of ways. Start supporting local companies and local farms as much as you possibly can. And in the past, I've talked about that, and it's expensive, I get it. It's not that expensive anymore. I know places all over the country where I've been where you can find local eggs raised properly, just in somebody's backyard or on their farm, being raised properly. And I've seen those eggs go for $3 or $4 a dozen. Now, a lot of people think that's expensive. You buy a pastured egg in the grocery store, they're $7 or $8 a dozen. I have a local family here who'll sell me all the eggs I want for $4 a dozen. I always give them 5 because I think 4 is just too cheap. But go find those places, support those local farmers. It's summertime, farmers markets are starting up. Go out to farmers markets, make these connections. You can find these people at the farmers market, but that doesn't mean you can't build a relationship with them and just buy directly from them at any time. It's getting easier and easier to find meat like this, and the prices of the really healthy, well-raised produce and animal products are now almost in line with what you're paying at the grocery store. And you'll have a more consistent supply if you start building some relationships with local farmers, or if you have the ability to grow some of your own food, maybe have a little flock of chickens, maybe raise some meat rabbits. Those are all good ideas. I mean, I'd love for somebody to give me some reason why you shouldn't do things like that. There really are none. There are so many benefits to becoming more self-sufficient around food. I was going to do a garden update today. I may save it for later. I've already got calls coming in. So I'll hold off on that. But if you're interested in gardening, I can certainly help a lot. Don't have decades of experience, but I have a lot of recent, pretty intense experience. The last couple of years, I have really put a lot of time into reading, taking courses, learning, experimenting in the garden. I'm producing quite a bit of food on a pretty small area right now. So if you have any questions about that, we can certainly talk about it. I'm not going to go through my update right now. I'm going to get to some calls first instead. Let me make sure I got to everything in the notes. Oh, a couple other things. 2 other things. I'm just going to mention these. I may do show opens on them here in the future. There is a medical condition called sudden adult death syndrome. Sudden adult death syndrome. It's not new. It's been around since the early 1900s, but it's pretty rare. We don't see this happen very often. And when they would use this sudden adult death syndrome is anytime somebody over the age of 40 dies and we do an autopsy and we can't figure out why they died. It happens once in a while. We just have no idea. Why did this person die? We do an autopsy, we do toxicology screens, we do everything we can possibly do. We can't figure out why this person died. They assume that it probably has something to do with the heart. That is the assumption when this happens, that something went wrong with the heart that we're not able to detect after death. We're not positive that that's what's happening, but we think it is. Well, here's why I'm bringing this up now. Like I said, it's been around since the 1900s. The numbers of people dying from sudden adult death syndrome around the world are through the roof. It's not a little increase, it's a really big increase. All over the world, people dying, and we don't know why. We can do an autopsy, we can't figure out why. Those numbers have gone way up. Of course, we have to start thinking, is it caused by COVID, or is it caused by the COVID vaccine, or possibly both? And I'm pretty sure that both have something to do with this. I don't know when we'll get access to the data to try to figure it out, but it seems pretty clear. And we also know, absolutely, I mean, even the government doesn't dispute this. We have the data. The vaccine does increase the risk of heart issues, myocarditis, pericarditis. That's proven. Now, they try to suppress the numbers and make it sound better than it is, but we know that happens after the vaccine. The odds of that happening go way up. That's a heart issue. We think this sudden adult death syndrome is also a heart issue. Definitely something to keep an eye on. Like I said, I may do a longer show on that sometime soon. Something else, this one just makes me crazy. Genetically modified, and now I'm talking about animals, not just plants. It's bad enough when we genetically modify plants, and every time I talk about this, I'm going to get a bunch of emails from ignorant people. And yes, ignorant is the correct word here. They will almost always have an agricultural background, and they will tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about, that there's nothing wrong with genetically modified. We've been doing it forever. They do it right on the farm. That is total bullshit. It's completely wrong, and it shows how ignorant these people are. I don't care if they have 120 years of living on a farm. Wrong is wrong. That is not what genetically modified is. That is selective breeding, hybridizing, cross-pollinating. We can even crossbreed certain animals. That's fine. That can all happen in nature. As humans, we've been doing that with plants and animals forever. The best example of this is look at dogs. Every dog on the planet is a descendant of a wolf. But look at them. How do you get a Chihuahua and a Bull Mastiff from a wolf? But we were able to do that. That is not genetically modified. That is just selective breeding. I'm okay with that. We selective breed plants and we get certain characteristics that make the plant better. And it's a natural process that humans just speed up a little bit. And we can manipulate that process to get certain outcomes. We've been doing it long enough to know that it doesn't hurt anything. Now, in plants, there is something you should know. A lot of times when you start crossbreeding plants and creating new varieties, many of those varieties will not be able to propagate the next season. A lot of these hybrid varieties, they're not genetically modified, they're just hybrid plants where we, cross-pollinate. But many times you can't collect the seeds from those and use them the next year. They won't grow a plant, or they'll grow a plant that won't grow fruit. That is the one downside you need to be aware of. So for my core crops, tomatoes, potatoes, onions, garlic, peppers, cabbage, the core stuff that I grow, I always grow heirloom varieties. What heirloom tells us is that we know that the seeds from that produce will continue to produce year after year after year, so you can just keep collecting your own seeds, and I wouldn't even need to buy any seeds. Now, I do grow some hybrid plants, because I like them and I want them. But I also know that I can't collect seeds from those. If I can't get the seed for that plant next year, if I can't buy that seed next year, I can't use anything that I collected, they won't grow. But there's no health downsides to this. Genetically modified is completely different. It is not a natural process at all. We physically take genes out of one organism, splice them out, and splice that gene into another organism. That never happens in nature. That is a totally unnatural process. And we mix and match. We put genes from plants into animals and genes from animals into plants. This is a really, really bad idea. We shouldn't be doing it. And what's even worse, somehow, you don't even know that the food you're eating is genetically modified. It's not required to be labeled. Not at all. Isn't that ridiculous? All the stuff that we have to put on food labels, but we don't have to put on there that it was genetically modified, that it's Frankenfood. So you better know your food source. So here's the latest genetically modified animal they are approving right now. In the chicken business, we grow chickens for eggs, and when you're growing chickens for eggs, you only care about the females because we don't need males in this operation at all. And it is very common that we kill off most of the male chicks, hundreds of thousands, if not millions a year. We just kill off the male chicks because in an egg operation, they are worthless. So we kill them. That's awful, but that's our food supply. Now, we also grow broilers and fryers, chickens that we're going to eat. I guess males are fine there. But in the egg business, they don't want males and they have to kill them, and it's a lot of work and it's expensive. So let's just create a Franken chicken, which is what they've done. They've genetically modified a chicken so that none of the males will live. We don't have to kill them anymore. We've created a Franken chicken that will kill all of the male embryos unnaturally. None of the male embryos from these chickens will survive. That is a really, really bad idea, but that's what we're doing. I may do a whole show on genetic modification because there are a lot of ignorant people about it who swear they know what they're talking about because they grew up on a farm, and they are completely wrong about this topic. And it's going on a lot, and we don't know it. If you don't go look for this information, like I said, it's not required to be labeled at all. And it's done on plants and animals, and it's pretty crazy. All right, calls are coming in. We are going to get started today in Illinois. Mike, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Kevin. How you doing?
Doing good. What can I help you with today?
Got a question. If you're eating once a day, what's the best way to get in all your nutrient-dense foods? Because you can't eat everything in one day. Is it okay to eat it, once, so much this day, that day, instead of eating the stuff every day like I used to?
Yes, it is okay. And the reason being, most of the nutrients that we want to get out of these foods, out of the really nutritious foods, most of them we store in our body. So you're able to eat them at different times and go, times without eating them, and you can still have those nutrients in your body. There are some exceptions. There are some water-soluble nutrients. The big one that comes to mind is vitamin C. We should be consuming vitamin C every day, just about, because it washes out of our body every day. But there doesn't seem to be any big downside to not getting vitamin C every day. So, yeah, for the most part, things like, organ meats and seafood, for the most part, if you're eating organ meats twice a week or seafood twice a week, that's plenty.
Oh, okay. All right. I was just curious about the fermented garlic, the fermented beet powder, the sauerkraut, the fermented sauerkraut.
Same thing there. You know, probiotics don't go, well, they do go away. They change constantly, but it's not like just because we don't eat probiotic foods for a day or two that we lose all of our gut bacteria. In fact, fasting, which is what we're talking about, seems to improve our gut bacteria.
Okay. All righty. I just was curious.
Yeah. No, you'll be fine.
Thank you.
You know, when we start seeing people doing crazy long-term fasting like a month, you would think that we would see some nutrient deficiencies during that time. But there doesn't seem to be a lot of evidence of that. For some reason, it seems like people can fast for extended periods of time, and we don't see a lot of nutrient deficiencies.
Okay, good enough. Thank you. I'll let you get on to somebody else.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. Let's see. We're going to go to Iowa this time. Jeremy, welcome to the program.
Hi, Kevin.
What's on your mind today?
Hey, I better get to the important thing first. It's not really a question. It's more like a situation. Tammy, well, okay, we know we have one food source as far as we eat the same things, you know, fish, meat, eggs. Well, anyway, 7 months ago, we pickled some eggs to try to test it, and pickling lime. And my mom was over, and they wanted to see if it was fresh, so they cracked one.
Well, wait, hold on. Are you talking about pickling eggs or glassing eggs? Water glassing eggs.
Oh, water glass. Yes, water glassing.
Okay, that makes
water
more
glassing.
sense. Okay,
Yeah, with
got it.
Yeah, and we had bought a pickling lime from
let me clarify
Yeah.
this because people listening are probably confused. Even though you're using a product called pickling lime, and we do pickle eggs a lot to preserve them, this is different. So when we pickle an egg to preserve it, we hard boil it first or soft boil it. Then we put it in a pickling solution with vinegar and those kind of things and pickling spices, and we pickle the hard-boiled egg. It gets tangy and, sour like a pickle, and it preserves the egg. What you're talking about is preserving the egg uncooked in the shell. And we have to first start with farm eggs that have not been washed. You can't do this with grocery store eggs. You have to start with, properly raised eggs that were not washed. And then you use this specific pickling lime. You mix the lime in the water. You fill a jar with water, and then you start dropping in raw eggs in the shell. And somehow this solution forms, protection around these eggs, and they kind of last forever. Or they're supposed to. I have not done this process yet. I've read about it. I understand it. I've never tried it.
Yeah, because we have chickens, and so we wanted to, preserve some, right? Like you said, with that process, and so they cracked it into a bowl, and just to see what was going on. It's been 6 or 7 months, so and. Tammy, we had one cracked in the bowl. We were eating that night anyway, and then the next morning we just had that. We didn't want to waste the egg, so we made bacon and eggs, and she ate that one that was they cracked. Well, she broke out into this like serious rash, like nasty rash under her eye and her chest. So much so that we waited a day or two to see what was going to happen. It just kept getting worse. And like I said, we don't eat anything that's different. The same one, we know our food source. Yeah. And that was the only thing that was different was that pickling lime. I guess it's calcium hydroxide, but anyway, and I don't know if going outside, the sun made it worse because it was like where her skin was exposed. There's a lot of variables here. Even one with, now that you mentioned, the eggs. Sometimes, when we're on the road, her mom collects the eggs. Now we wonder maybe did she wash them or something, and then that stuff permeated into the shell, and Tammy's allergic to it. But we had to get rid of it, so we went to our doctor that we do. Sometimes does our labs, and he gave her a shot of prednisone. Yeah, because we had to get on the road, and we didn't know what to do. I swelled up and all that, but it's finally going away now. It took like a week, but
did anybody else eat any of these eggs?
No.
Okay. So
I gave it.
So now you said something else, and I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. It sounded like you cracked an egg one day and cooked it the next morning.
Yes, they put it in a glass bowl, and we didn't eat it because we were eating that night with my mom and stuff. So they just I covered it, put it in the fridge.
I was just going to ask. It did go in the fridge, so it'll be fine. I mean, just the fact I didn't know if it got cracked and then left on the counter. So there's two possibilities here. One, something changed within the egg during that time that she's sensitive to, or two, she is actually sensitive to the pickling lime itself. I don't have an answer for you, and you would have to test this, and it sounds unpleasant. I mean, I was getting scared. Like, is she going to be scarred for life or what? Right.
And
I mean, you could test it, but even that's a little scary. I mean, I would be a little nervous about testing one of these eggs, but unless you could take it to a lab somewhere. There are food labs around, and you may take them to a lab and see if they could test for something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, right. So I don't know if we need necessarily to preserve them, and we make a lot of ice cream, we eat them sometimes, but I don't know, freezing them as well, but we're going to look into it. So anyway, that was
I know, like I said, I've read a lot about the process. I understand it. I've thought about trying it so that, the idea of preserving eggs in their raw state is, I like that idea, but certainly...
Oh, they were fresh. They were
either something went wrong here, or she is that sensitive to this product, or I just don't know.
Right. So anyway, and so isn't ketchup a wonderful thing?
Yes.
I mean, it's like I saw you canned a bunch of barbecue sauce and on Healthy Tribe, and I make my own sauce too. But doesn't it seem like all we do is like jazz up ketchup?
That's
to
it.
Make barbecue sauce?
Yes, that is the easiest way to make really good barbecue sauce, is find a really good quality, low sugar or no sugar ketchup. So there are two options that I use. One is Primal Kitchen ketchup. It has no sugar at all. The problem with Primal Kitchen is it's expensive.
It's small.
And I haven't found it in big quantities. So you got to buy all these damn bottles and open them up. And I'm doing, a 3-gallon batch because I want to can it. So I did find Portland ketchup, which is really clean. It's organic. It doesn't have any junk in it. It does have a little bit of cane sugar. It must not be a lot.
Yeah, is that the one in the brown box?
Yeah.
It's like a big brown box?
Yep. It must not be a lot of sugar because it only has 2 grams more of carbs than the Primal Kitchen does. It's not that big of a deal. And because I can buy it in 2.5-gallon boxes, it's a bag in a box kind of thing. So I created my recipe on a 2.5-gallon batch, and it's nice. I open the box, put it in the pot, put in all my other stuff, and before you know it, I have barbecue sauce. Now, I do have a recipe that I use at the end of summer when I'm loaded with tomatoes and onions and garlic and jalapenos from the garden, and I do make my barbecue sauce from scratch, but basically I still kind of make ketchup first. I use all my tomatoes and that, and I make ketchup. Then I use that ketchup base to make my barbecue sauce. And I have to tell you, this batch of barbecue sauce, I tasted, I opened one after I canned it. I ended up canning 22 pints, I think. I opened one up.
Wow.
This is the best barbecue sauce I have ever tasted in my life. This is my best batch ever.
All right.
It is so good. I wish I could just market this stuff and sell it. I could, I guess, but that's a big project.
Well, yeah, Tammy said she loves mine too. And I've tried it with like tomato paste because I was like, why am I using ketchup? I'm using vinegar, apple cider vinegar. Basically all the ingredients of ketchup anyway, like with,
yeah,
just some distilled vinegar, and, apple cider vinegar,
right.
and, Worcestershire, a little Worcestershire, and then of course the tomato stuff. But then I was like, all I'm doing is adding exactly the same ingredients. I use,
just more
apple
of them.
cider. I use ketchup. Right. And I don't use any added sugar. I add like garlic powder and onion salt, and I use blackstrap molasses.
Right.
And then I was sometimes I'll use like a spicy date, something, or sometimes I'll just use honey.
Yep.
And then I'll add that kitchen bouquet a little bit, and then for the spice I'll use black pepper, red peppers, and dried red peppers, and chili peppers, and Tabasco.
Yeah, this time for
Cook it
heat,
down,
because I do like spicy barbecue sauce. This time for heat, I used habanero. And habanero, the flavor of habanero really, really seemed to kick up the flavor of this barbecue sauce. Now, it's hot. It's got some heat.
Okay.
That's the way I like mine. But the flavor is just incredible. And I let it cook down all day long.
Maybe I'll try it.
Yeah, I just put it on a low simmer, the big pot, let it cook down all day long. So it's really, rich and thick and tangy and smoky. And it's got the heat from the habanero.
Yeah,
and
right.
I'm ready just to drink this stuff. It's so damn good.
Right. Hey, thanks for, doing introducing us to the X3 bar and all that. Cause, man, where else can we, do all the, big lifts out here on the road so easily, deadlift, squat, chest press, all that. And, I didn't know if if X3 makes a shorter band, but I found a company that maybe if you might have heard of it. It's called Sirius Steel, but they make the bands that are, but in a shorter, they make a 32-inch, which, and the quality is pretty similar. So I got some of those, but I didn't know if you knew about it.
No, I didn't know about that. What's the name of the company? Because I will check those out. Because that is the biggest problem I have with the X3 bars. I'm so damn short. My arms are so short that I do struggle with those bands. I would love to have. Now, here's the thing. Do they feel... when you're doing the workout, do they feel like the bands from the X3? Because that was the real secret. I've tried band systems before, and I hated them.
Yes. Right, I know. And so I've ordered, before X3, I was using some bands that were kind of similar with thickness and the material, from China, and no, these are going to be like right there. Like, if there was no X3, these would be them. Yeah.
What's the name of the company?
Sirius Steel.
Sirius Steel. Okay.
I went ahead and ordered the whole, I went ahead and ordered they're so short. I left the black one at home because I was like, I'm not going to get tempted to use it yet because I want to build up my strength on these shorter ones. So anyway, check it out.
Will do.
Let me know.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for the call. Great stuff. I did post my barbecue sauce recipe on healthytribe.com. So, and it's a big batch. So you start with 2.5 gallons of the base ketchup. It ends up being a little over 3 gallons total. And then I cooked it down. So it probably ended up back at about 2.5 gallons again, or pretty close. And then I canned it. I got 22 pints. But I put the recipe up there. And this is my simple recipe. Basically, I can give you all the ingredients right now. It's really simple. It's the ketchup, low sugar or no sugar. The two brands I've found are Primal Kitchen and Portland ketchup. So the ketchup, raw apple cider vinegar, and I use organic everything, unsulfured molasses, blackstrap molasses, unsulfured and organic. And I even put links so you can go find all these products as well. So it's the ketchup, apple cider vinegar, the blackstrap molasses. I do use liquid smoke, and no, liquid smoke is not fake. It's actually real smoke. That is the base recipe, and if you just mix those things to taste, I do put quantities in this time. I normally don't, but I did when I made this batch. I measured everything so that I would know, and I'm glad I did because, like I said, this has been my best batch so far. But that's it. Now, you can jazz this up a little bit without getting complicated, but that is a really simple way to make a good barbecue sauce. I did use some onion, salt, garlic powder, and then I used some habanero sauce to create the heat. That's it. You mix it all in a pot. You let it simmer down. It gets thicker. It gets nice and rich. And then you can it. Super easy. And you can water bath can barbecue sauce in just 20 minutes. 20 minutes in a water bath canner and you're fine. Or 20 minutes in a pressure canner. I used both. I was able to do 22 pints in one batch. I got 18 pints into my pressure canner. That's why I like to use it, because I can get so many. I can double stack in there. So I got 18 pints in the pressure canner, and then I did the last 4 pints at the same time in a water bath canner, and everything came out great. I am also really on a roll with the pressure canner. I have done 6 batches. So it's roughly 6 times 18. It's over 100 pints. My last 6 batches, I have not had a single jar not seal. That never used to happen. Prior to this, I can barely remember batches where every single jar sealed, except now I'm on 6 in a row. I have to believe my canning skills are getting better. Let's continue on with the phones. We have lines open if you want to join us. I have some other things I could talk about. I could do a garden update, but we've gotten through the calls pretty quickly here. There is room for more. If you jump in right now, I'll keep taking them. 855-950-3835. You dial right now, promise I'll get to you. Let's go to Ohio. Carl, welcome to the program.
Hi, Kevin. I got a few interesting things here for you.
Okay.
I ran across a gentleman that lives up in Nebraska, and he built himself a homemade geothermal greenhouse, just using basically flexible drain pipes to, he buried those under the ground and put a fan to it, and he was able to keep the greenhouse fairly warm enough, and he's actually growing tangerines up in Nebraska in his little greenhouse.
Interesting. I've seen designs for these. It wouldn't work really well on the property that I'm on right now, but it would work really well on the property I have over on the Washington side of the river. I'm actually thinking about attempting one of these over there, and we have mild enough winters that I'm pretty sure I could grow some stuff all year round here.
He did say that, when picking, you got to bury those pipes deep enough that you're below the frost line. Otherwise, it's going to just freeze up and nothing's going to stay alive in that cold.
Yeah, and we don't really have much of a frost line here. I mean, we very, very seldom drop below freezing, even in the wintertime. I mean, when we get snowstorms here, and we do, it'll be like 28, 29, 30 degrees. And you really just don't get deep frost when you have weather like that. So we have really, really mild winters here. And I have looked at this, and there are several different designs you can use. And I believe that I could probably continue growing some things all throughout the winter if I were to build one of those.
Yeah, I live down in Arizona. I've been thinking about doing that myself because, it would also keep it cool enough that I could keep fruits and vegetables going. Because that sun in Arizona just kills it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can remember trying to garden in Florida, and some things grow fantastic in that climate, but other things you really, really struggle to grow because it's just too hot.
Yeah, some of the other things I ran across is I ran across a YouTube video of a gentleman. He was canning butter.
Yeah, canning butters is actually a thing. I've talked in the past, I buy canned butter. That's some of the best butter I have ever had in my life. It comes from New Zealand, and New Zealand has some of the cleanest environments, and cows have always been grass-fed forever in New Zealand. They make a butter called Red Feather is the brand, and I buy it by the case. And it's shelf-stable forever, just about. But I've also, in the group that I'm in, Canning Rebels, they talk about canning butter all the time.
Yeah, when I was, looking at canning, and because I'm getting into canning right now, I got me an All-American, but sadly it won't fit on my stove because it's too tall. And I actually ran across a company that makes reusable canning lids because I looked at the ones that you were talking about, and it's hard to find the rubber rings, at least for what I could find. And so I ran across this website that sells the lids and the rings. It's called canninglids.com.
Yeah, so...
And their product is called...
go ahead.
Yeah, their product was called, Harvest Guard.
Okay, I haven't heard of that one. I've been using reusable lids for years, and they're made by a company called Tatler. So it's a plastic disc as the lid and a separate rubber seal, but that rubber seal is also reusable basically forever. So when you buy a box, you get the lid and the seal, and then you just need the rings, and you can use, I have rings everywhere. But the reusable lids are fantastic. I love them.
Yeah, the company that I ran across, they do plastic lids as well, EPA free and all that. And the rubber rings, they say you can reuse those rubber rings 8 to 10 times.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen a limit on the Tatler rings. I don't think I've ever used any of mine 10 times yet. What I do is I buy a case of jars with lids, rings, all that, and I use those, the lids that come with the jars the first time. Then I throw those away. Although in this canning group, if you were trying to save some money or, they reuse their lids all the time in this canning group. The lids that they say you can't reuse, the lid that comes with the jar, the metal lid, they reuse them all the time in that group. So it can be done. And the thing is, it either seals or it doesn't. If it doesn't seal, then you don't have a canned product. If it does seal, I don't care if you've reused that lid 10 times. If it seals, it seals. Now, if it seals and a month later it pops, then you might want to reconsider. Maybe you're using your lids too many times. I have never reused metal lids, but I do know that you can. And if there were ever a real shortage of lids, I would certainly attempt to reuse mine. But I once I use that original lid that comes with the jar, once I open those jars, those lids get thrown away, and then I switch to the Tatler. But I have so many lids that I doubt that I've used any of my Tatlers more than maybe 4 or 5 times.
Quick change of subject. I actually just got done doing my my first official batch after doing a starter batch of the Luterai yogurt, and I heard that you got to restart over on the bacteria after you ran it through a few times, or is that true, or do you just keep going with what you got?
The last time I checked, I think I remember reading that Dr. Davis had used his bacteria over 100 times. He did 100 batches without going back and buying any new bacteria. He just kept reusing his.
Yeah, my second batch came out pretty good. It does have a little bit of clumps in it, but it's not too bad. My wife, she loves the heck out of it. I gave her a cup of that, and I did your recipe of a little bit of maple syrup and cinnamon, and she tried it, and she wouldn't give me the cup back.
Say that again?
I gave her a cup of that yogurt with the maple syrup and cinnamon.
Yeah.
I gave it to her, and to try it out, and she wouldn't give me the cup back.
Oh, yeah. Isn't that awesome? I just had some of that last night. That is probably the best yogurt I've ever had.
Yeah, I really enjoy it, and I appreciate all that you've done, and I'll let you get to the next person.
All right. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Minnesota. Brandy, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kevin. I have a really simple question. It might sound stupid, but actually I'm asking it. So a while ago, there was an infestation, that may not be the right word, of Japanese beetles. And you were talking about, I think, last Friday about, your war with ladybugs. It's like, how do you know that you don't have Japanese beetles and ladybugs? So ladybugs, they talked about Japanese beetles. They bite you as well as they leave nasty stains on walls and they stink. Just so that's kind of what my question is.
Yeah, it's not hard to learn how to tell the difference. They look very similar in shape, but size and color, and also location and habitat. So I have never found a Japanese beetle in my garden anywhere. I know they are here in North America. They're not native here, so we shouldn't see them, but they are here, and we do see them. So ladybugs are actually carnivores. Ladybugs go after other bugs. That's why I keep ladybugs in my garden all year long. I buy them, bring them in, and release them into the garden. And if I run out of them, I buy more. I actually have a subscription.
Right.
For a while now. I will be getting ladybugs every 2 weeks. They are carnivores. They eat other bugs. So one of the things you could do if you aren't sure which one you have is watch what they're eating. I can go find my ladybugs on plants and I can watch them eat the little aphids and bugs that are on there. Japanese beetles are not carnivores. They're herbivores. They tend to eat the plant. That's why they can be a problem. Color is another pretty good indicator. Now, most of the ladybugs we're used to are like the orange with black spots. But there are actually a lot of colors for ladybugs. They can be brown, yellow, red, black, orange, pink, and white. Those are ladybugs. Now, Japanese beetles are almost always like a green and gold shimmery kind of color with, what am I thinking?
I thought they were more orangish kind of.
Like brown, well, that orange gold kind of with brown on the wings. So, and you can look up pictures online, and once you kind of familiarize yourself with them, they're pretty easy. Honestly, to me, I almost can mistake a Japanese beetle for a tick. They look just as much like a tick as they do a ladybug. So once you kind of see that, then it's a lot easier to pick out the Japanese beetles. Although, like I said, I've never found any. There is another bug, and I don't even know the name of it, that looks like a ladybug, and it's not. It's kind of a bright red with black spots, kind of like a ladybug. They don't do any damage, but they also don't eat the aphids, whatever they are. I've found those in my garden, and I just leave them alone because they're not hurting anything. But I've never found any Japanese beetles.
Right. Okay. Well, I didn't know they were as small as ticks. I've seen them on the walls, and they leave nasty stains but they also stink after you crush them, too. I just wondered. That's all. That's really all.
Yep.
Thank you. I just kind of give you a transition to go into your garden update as well, which I really enjoy. Learning things from you, and I was telling Angie, it's like, I want to send you this book I talked about last Wednesday that got a lot of helpful hints of like taking the ends off of lemons, or making your own trees, or taking seeds and then growing them. Real simple things that you can do. So I want to send you those, because you can't really get them unless you know where to find them and stuff.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I love that kind of stuff. There's some really cool tricks like that you can do with food and plants.
Yeah. Okay. I'm at my destination. So thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. All right. We're out of calls. If you want to jump in, you can. I think we had a caller on the line. I think we lost the call, and then they posted in Healthy Tribe. So I'm going to answer this here. Here's the question. What are some things that can help me with nausea? I was on Prilosec for 23 years, got the PPI kit and completed it 6 weeks ago, and ended my Prilosec at that time. Was doing okay, but for the last 8 days, I have started to have nausea. The only 2 things that would help that I've found so far are Pepto-Bismol, or eating a slice of white bread. I know that's a no-no, just trying to get relief. Thanks. I'm pretty sure I know what's going on here. So after being on Prilosec for 23 years, you may need to do another round of the PPI kit. Nausea, like you're experiencing right now, is a sign of weak stomach acid. One of the things you can do to test my theory, there are other things that could cause this. Remember, we're troubleshooting now. I'm reading a book right now about troubleshooting. That's pretty awesome. So we're troubleshooting, and the most likely reason for this, and the easiest one to test, so that's where we're going to start first, is low stomach acid. So if you have any of the hydrochloric acid left over, or if you have any supplements with hydrochloric acid in it, right before you eat, take a couple of these, maybe 2, depending on the strength. You want to get a pretty good amount of hydrochloric acid in and see if that works. And if that works, then you may want to consider just doing one more kit. I have had instances, one case I can remember, somebody had been on PPIs for over 30 years, I think. We had to do 3 kits. They would do a kit, they would feel better. A couple months later, some of the symptoms would start coming back. We could also look at, are you getting the proper nutrients you need to produce your own stomach acid? Nutrient deficiencies in your diet could cause that to come back. So you could experiment yourself with some hydrochloric acid. If the hydrochloric acid works, you could then do another kit if you want and see if that eliminates the problem and if it stays away. If it doesn't, then you could do a one-on-one and we could explore whether or not you have some nutrient deficiencies or not. But you could also experiment with this on your own. Let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Georgia. John, welcome to the program.
Yeah, so I talked to you before about my blood pressure and the fact that I've been carnivore for a few months.
Yeah.
Well, I ended up going to the doctor to get on blood pressure medicine. Hopefully in the future I'll be able to get back off of them. But I did want to say my doctor did a blood test on me last month, and I've been carnivore for almost 7 months. And he told me that my good cholesterol is 45 and my bad is 67.
So there's no such thing as bad cholesterol.
Well, no, I guess not. But I've never even thought about having my cholesterol tested until he wanted to test my blood.
So what did he want? So after he tested and he saw the numbers, what does he think you should do?
He told me that he said, continue to carnivore. He said, my numbers are perfect.
Excellent. Good. Even though he called it bad cholesterol. And I know 99% of the people out there still call it bad cholesterol, but we should probably stop doing that. But I'm glad that he looked at it. He understands it enough to see that a carnivore diet actually improved your cholesterol.
Yeah, and he didn't agree with my carnivore diet, but he also said to me that he would rather me eat to where I'm losing weight than eat, whatever I want and gain weight.
So, well, exactly. That's a really good sign. I'm glad he at least sees that. My question would be, when he says, I really don't like the fact that you're eating a carnivore diet, my question would be, why? Tell me why. Explain why you think this is bad.
Yeah, I didn't go that far into it. I didn't want to get into a big debate with him.
Yeah,
but,
it's so I'm glad he didn't try to push a statin on you.
He actually did. When
of course he did.
The first time I went to him, before he ever even tested my blood.
Oh boy!
I just never filled the prescription.
Yeah. Oh,
I never filled it.
Good.
Yeah, I just did the 2 blood pressure medicines that he gave me. I do have a question about the blood pressure stuff. So I'm on valsartan.
Okay.
And by what I'm reading is that it will flush salt out of your system,
which is a bad idea.
So, yeah. So should I increase my salt intake, do you think, or?
So what's the other drug that he put you on, lisinopril?
No, I told him I wouldn't take lisinopril. My brother takes that, and he coughs all the time, and I didn't want to go through that. The other one, I don't even know how to pronounce it. It's called Metro.
Okay.
It's METOPROLO.
Yeah, this is another common one, and that's not a big deal. It's a fairly mild drug. I don't worry too much about that one. Did you, when you weren't taking high blood pressure medication, were you checking your own blood pressure?
Yes.
And what were your numbers average?
About 180 over 100.
Wow. Here's what I would recommend, strongly recommend. Rather than, because this is unusual for you to be on carnivore, to be getting all these good results and still have blood pressure that high. If you were like 140, 150 over 90 something, I think no big deal. That will continue to get better. These numbers are concerning, and rather than just stay on 2 medications and hope it goes away, I would do a consult with Dr. Wolfson.
Dr. Wilson?
Wolfson, Wolfson, yeah. He's a cardiologist. We've had him on the show many times. We should probably get him back here soon because he's always got great stuff. He is a traditionally trained cardiologist. His father was a cardiologist, been in the business forever. He's excellent. But he realized that as a traditional cardiologist, he was actually just killing people. And he, says he wants to spend the rest of his life making up for all the damage he did. So now he helps people with cardiology issues totally natural. So he would be able to dig a little deeper and figure out why your numbers are so high. And then he'll have better recommendations other than just drugs.
Okay. What's his first name?
Jack.
I can look him up online.
Yeah, Jack Wolfson.
Okay. I think I actually have heard him on the show before.
Yeah, and you can even look up the paleocardiologist. He'll come right up.
Okay, right here he is.
Yep.
Alrighty.
Great guy. You can do
if I can contact.
Yeah, you can do a virtual consultation with them. And also, I'm going to cut you loose. If you're not using Cardio Miracle, you should be. I don't think Cardio Miracle is going to solve your whole problem here, not with numbers that high. So certainly start the Cardio Miracle. If you're not taking it already, you can get it in our store at letstruck.com. It does work amazing, but I would also want you to, do a consult with Dr. Wolfson just to make sure we don't really have something wrong here that needs to be addressed. Let's go to Virginia this time. Kenny, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Just a quick question about fermented cabbage. I made several jars of cabbage 2 weeks ago, and put the vented lids on top. Three of the jars I did the salt in with the cabbage, and one I did just plain cabbage and put the brine on top to see which worked the best. The one that I just put the brine on top, I must not have had my lid on, my vented lid on tight enough, and it actually sucked the seal down inside the jar. When I took the lid off, it did not. It looks okay, but I'm just questioning. It was open to the air. Do you think that's a problem?
Not a problem at all. In fact, let me tell you how Eastern Europeans make sauerkraut, and they've been doing this for hundreds of years. They will have big, like ceramic crocks, like 5-gallon crocks, and they'll put it down in a root cellar or a basement, and it will have a big ceramic lid. And some people don't even use lids, period. I have one. I'm actually fermenting peppers in mine right now. Sarah got me a big ceramic fermenting crock for Christmas. I love it. I have mine full of hot peppers right now for a fermented pepper sauce. But they would pack that full of cabbage and salt, let it ferment and become sauerkraut, and then they would just go down and they would take sauerkraut out from the bottom. They would, kind of dig down in and take sauerkraut out from the bottom and just pack more cabbage and salt on the top. It's never sealed, not even close to being sealed. Even when you put the ceramic lid on it, it's not even a form-fitting lid. So keeping air away from this is not required. It can just sometimes stop us from getting some other bad bacteria that can possibly get in and create mold. But lots of people ferment in open crocks.
Okay. All right. Well, I didn't think it was going to be a problem. I thought, well, I'll just give it a shot. Just check it out with you. So
yeah, the vented lids, sometimes they help with odor, and if people are doing this in their kitchen or their pantry, they like it because it's, right now I have this big ceramic crock with hot peppers just sitting over in my kitchen right now, and it's been there, I guess it's going on about a week, and it's starting to get pretty fragrant. I mean, you can smell it just walking past it because it's not sealed. I love the smell of it. I think it smells incredible right now. But it's starting to make the whole room smell. So I will probably today, I'll move it down into the garage or somewhere downstairs where it stays nice and cool because I plan on fermenting these peppers for a year.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. Be safe. Be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.